I have just turned record on,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
just because you may say something worthwhile.
I love your faith.
Inspire, connect
Resource, growing healthy churches.
is in relationship for God's mission.
How are you
Great to
doing,
see you,
buddy?
buddy. Yeah, really well. We're in that stage now where we're thinking, oh, what else do we need to do to get prepared for the move next week? So, and the answer is loads. Yeah.
You don't want to be moving too often, do you?
Oh, it's a pain. Oh, it really is, Joth. Yeah. Well, as you know, I've got a garage full of tools, and so yeah, so that's yeah. There's a lorry load in just with the tools, I think.
So, what's the plan, Dave? You move out.
Yeah, move out the end of next week, and then I start my new role in November. So we've got a lot of the summer where I can spend some time preparing for this new ministry, also recuperating as well, and hopefully doing quite a bit of cycling. So I'm looking forward to that. As you know, I bought Sue an electric kit to fit onto her bike, which is now working, and so we're going to have our first blast on that later on this afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see. She'll be saying to me, "Come on, slow coach, keep up."
So the plan is so you're going to be a little bit like Abraham, just wherever you end up, it will be your home for a while.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and we're really looking forward to that. And so we're hoping to do quite a bit of touring through Wales. As you know, we love our homeland, and so but there's loads of it we don't know that well, frankly, Joth. And so as you know, I'm from South Wales, and so there's lots of Mid Wales and North Wales that Sue and I don't know. We've been a few times and fallen in love just how gorgeous it is, and so we've got a bit of time now. I started some time ago doing a cycle from Cardiff Bay through to Anglesey, and I've got sort of halfway up Wales, and I was just doing little bits at a time. And I was telling my nephew, and it's about, I don't know, about 220 miles or something altogether. And my nephew said to me, "Oh," he said, "Uncle, I did that last Saturday," he said. Well, which I was not amused about, because it had already taken me, I think, about 7 different journeys. So yeah, it's different world, different world.
So Dave, it feels like a lifetime that you've been at SCBA.
Yeah, thanks, Joth. Yeah, thank you. I don't know what you're saying, Joth. I don't know what you're saying.
Yes, lifetime imprisonment for me.
It does seem as if we've been here a lot longer than 3.5 years. That's for sure.
I do feel a little bit like I'm losing half of myself because we joined regional ministry together.
Yeah.
Same day, we turned up at that first RM meeting together. We were, hadn't a clue what we were doing. I think we both realised we didn't know what on earth was going on at the same time. So we kind of lent on each other a little bit. So for me, it feels like SCBA is losing a huge chunk of what we're about.
Yeah, can you leave the huge chunk out of that, please, Joth? Because I am conscious. I am conscious. I need to get on my bike a bit more. Yeah.
You always made a good front prop. But it's right. God's led you this way. Just tell us a little bit about how God has led you to this new and quite exciting chapter of your life for UNC.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to say is just how much I have appreciated being part of this team. I have loved being part of Southern Counties. The welcome that Sue and I have received has just been huge. Not just from the RM team, although the dynamics of that team has just been wonderful. It's been such a happy team, so that's been great. But the welcome that we have received from so many people across the association has been massive. And so, and we don't take that for granted because, as you know, in this role, it's by invitation. And so people have very kindly invited us into their stories, into their lives. And so that's been a great privilege. But you'll know it was a tough year for everybody last year, but with the loss of my dad, I think that that crystallized things in terms about the importance of being close to family, because as you know, we weren't allowed to see my dad, and that was very painful. But also since we've arrived in Oxfordshire, we've had the birth of 2 grandchildren, and so the timing was really bad for that. And at Christmas time, we just recognised the fact that we didn't want to be absent grandparents, and so I think we both sensed that we needed to go back, and if our family lived in this area, we would love to stay in this role, because I have loved so much of this role. As you know, Joth, there's aspects of this role which are difficult, and but I think there are in every role. But our family are back in South Wales predominantly, and so heading back there just seemed to be the right thing to do. Sue, because of my age, I'm coming up 62, as you know, Joth, and so Sue said to me, "Look, is it time for you just to stop now? You've put a decent shift in, what about that?" And I must be honest, there'd been some mornings where I thought that sounds like a really attractive idea, but I knew that deep inside, I just that didn't feel right, and I just felt I've got a few more laps to do, and before I finish that race, and so I became aware of a church that were looking for a minister in the Cardiff area, and I knew the church quite well because I was in ministry for 15 years in Cardiff before coming to the association, and so I just phoned up a friend there who was on the leadership team, and I said, "Look, are you in conversation with somebody? Because if you are, then that's fine. I'll just see that as a no." But as it turned out, they weren't in conversation with anybody at that point, and so a conversation started. That was back in February, and about 2 weeks ago, they called me to be their pastor, and there was a huge sense of excitement in Sue and me about that appointment. We've got to know a lot of people via Zoom over that period, and I must be honest, that they look a really great bunch of people. So yeah, we're looking forward to that new role. Going back into local church ministry as well is exciting for me. I've been a local church pastor for a lot of years, and so I'm going back to a role that I've loved for many, many years. And in regional ministry, you get different opportunities, different challenges, and whatever. But one of the things I have missed is that consistency of just being with the same group of people week in, week out, and having teaching series that they're able to continue. So I'm looking forward to going back to that.
So you start in November, is it? The new chapter?
Yeah. So I got a chunk of weeks now to do some travelling across Wales. Yeah.
Great, and you're going to be living in the caravan for a while.
We are. So we're going to go touring. We got a little caravan, and initially we're going to be based in Usk, which is near Abergavenny, and then we'll start our little journey northwards, going up to the Elan Valley, which is, if you've not been there, can I just put in a plug for it? It's just beautiful. And then we're going up to Snowdonia, and then from there we're going to cut across into Shropshire, and which is close to where our daughter lives. So we're going to spend a bit of time with our daughter. So that'll be great.
Right, I'm feeling a bit jealous. I do wonder why, Dave, you didn't take the job with the Welsh Tourist Board. You really do so well, though, and I love it. When I say I'm going to Wales, you want to know exactly the village, the place, and then you know it so well. You go, oh yeah, you need to do this, you need to do that.
But it's such a Welsh thing, actually, Joth, because what I find, as you know, I've spent a lot of my years working in England, and what you tend to find when you go to a party or something like that, in England, people will tend to say, "What do you do? What do you do for a living?" Okay, just as a way of getting into a conversation. In Wales, people never ask you that question. What they ask in Wales is, "Where are you from?" And so, yeah, where are you from? And so they don't want something like Swansea. They'll want to know, Clydach or Ynysmeadew or Pontardawy or from the Mumbles or whatever. They want to know specifically. it's really rooted in locality and community. Yeah.
So, what was it 3.5 years? Edgington's 4 years of regional ministry.
Yeah.
I know that there must have been some highlights, Dave, that you just reflect back on and think, praise God for those moments. Do you want to share a couple of those? Any particularly ones stand out?
The very first meeting I attended was in Oxfordshire at a church that was which was struggling. It was quite an elderly congregation. And they were in conversation with another church that they had had some problems with, let's put it that way. And so they weren't the closest of friends. And so I was warned before I went to that meeting that this could be quite a difficult meeting. And I thought, well, happy days. And so I went to the meeting, and it wasn't a difficult meeting at all. What I saw were groups of people who were gracious. They were humble, and what I witnessed were two groups of leaders saying sorry to one another for some of the pain in the past, and actually could we start to write a new chapter? And so for my very first meeting in the association, I thought, well, dear me, if the rest of it's like this, I'll be a very happy boy. And much of it has been like that. Much of it has been about people being gracious and humble and daring to believe in a big God. Fast forward 3.5 years, and that those two churches have now effectively become one. And with a strong leadership team in place, a good trustee body, which encompasses both churches, and the excellent moderator that we were able to put in there from the association. And so as I leave, I just think, oh my goodness, there's a great story of people daring to come together, being humble enough to say, yes, there's been some mistakes, but actually God wants us to walk together. So I think that's been fantastic. And on Saturday, one of my last things I'll do for the association is actually to be involved in an induction service. And when I first arrived here, that church was going through some challenges, some real challenges, and to see the way that it's now flourishing again. They've appointed a new pastor. Everything just seems so healthy and so good. And so again, it's wonderful that 3.5 years later, I don't take any credit for it, by the way. It's just that God has placed the right people in the right place at the right time, and the church continues to flourish. So those are just a couple of examples of how I've really appreciated seeing God move in the association.
And as you move on, I mean, we could talk about the challenges, but in some ways, there's, as you say, there's always challenges in ministry. And I know there's been some huge challenges for you in regional ministry in terms of some of the churches that you work with. But I don't think that's particularly what we want to focus on, and probably not what you want to focus on, particularly as you finish. No. So I'm just wondering what kind of, if you had a chance to share with the whole association, what few sentences you would share as out of your experience and what you see God doing and believing what God can do in the future.
Well, the last 12, 18 months has just thrown everything up in the air, isn't it, in terms of church, what church looks like. What is church going to look like coming out of the pandemic in a post-COVID world? Nobody really knows. And I think that obviously there's fear there's insecurity with that. That's natural. That's called being human. But I think what I sense the Lord is challenging me with on this, as I again start to take on local church leadership, is dare to believe again in a big, big God. This is not taking God by surprise. And are there things that we need to learn here about how we communicate the gospel with others? the explosion in the digital format in our churches over the last 18 months is quite remarkable. Can you imagine if we'd actually said, without the pandemic, that actually we were going to start streaming all of these different things, and even some of our smaller churches were going to do it? Everybody would just look at you as if you'd gone out. But that's what our churches have done, and they've actually shown that they can communicate in ways that they've not normally done. Well, what other ways is the Lord calling us to communicate? And how can we engage more effectively in our communities? These are big questions for our churches. But I want us to, I want me, as well as others, to look at that with a sense of real confidence that we have a glorious gospel. You know, our gospel is life-changing. It's life-transforming. My dad, who I lost just a few months ago now, he loved Jesus. He didn't always love Jesus. He came to know Jesus in his mid-40s, and I saw the transformation in my dad's life, and I've seen the transformation of Christ in so many people's lives, and I think that's our calling, is to be able to present the truth and the beauty of Jesus wherever we go. And I think the massive challenge for me is, well, may something of the beauty of Jesus be seen in me. So it's not just words, but people can see that I've been hanging out with Jesus. And I think for each of us as leaders, we know how busy ministry is. But actually, what was it? It was the other day at the Wellbeing Conference when we were encouraged to waste time with God. I loved that line. Because we all want to be so productive or whatever. The most productive thing that we can do is hang out with Jesus. Just sit at his feet. Allow him to just be absorbed into our system, so that when people do encounter us, they meet something of Jesus.
Dave, I do love your vision of God and your desire to see the awesomeness of God and recognize that we often make God so small and we need to allow God to be God. I think that's a message that just resonated with you and through you, certainly to me over these last few years as we've got to know each other, but I think to others as well, and also your desire for us to look after ourselves in ministry, the recognition that it is tough. In a sense, it is a battle. I'm not too over keen on the war metaphors of the Christian faith, but it is a battle, and therefore we do need to recognise those moments where, well, I can just remember many of your reflections about the gauges and what are the gauges telling us. It's so important to you, isn't it? And I think it's so important to others.
They're massively important to me because I've been creaking, Joth, and when I've been looking at those some of those gauges, they've not been healthy. Some of the things that I've been looking back at, but the importance of having them in place is that you're aware that things aren't quite right, and so you can seek help. Now, we've got a great team leader in Colin, so we can go to Colin. I've been able to come to you and to others and just be able to talk very openly and honestly about just how fragile you're feeling or how vulnerable, and that's okay. I think that's actually really quite healthy, if I can use that term, because once you're aware that something's a little off kilter, if you seek help with that, or even acknowledge it to yourself, you're more likely then to share that with somebody that you can trust and then receive help. The problem, I think, for us is that when we ignore those signals, ignore those signs, and we can potentially get seriously hurt then. There's a word that Colin loves, and I must be honest, it's a word I love as well, and that's the word kindness. And I would just encourage our pastors to be kind to themselves. And so when they're struggling or whatever, be kind by just being honest with people that they can trust about how they are, and not play the pretend game. And I think if we're using that word kindness, I think one of the downsides for me as an RM has been the occasions when people have been unkind to one another, the way that they've not been careful with their words. And we know the power of words. And so they have the power to build up, and they also have the power to pull down. And I think I think if we stop and think again about who we represent and make sure that our words are sweet words, that they're gracious words, that they feed people, not give them food poisoning.
Dave, I know, across the region, both in your churches, but also even beyond, because I know you've been involved with other situations and people have seen you at conference and leaders' days and so forth. You've been so valued. You're such a relational friend to so many people, it's such a precious gift. We all have our different abilities and characteristics that God has given us, but you particularly have this huge amount of capacity for friendship that actually I've not met that often. I mean, there are others like you, but you're able to befriend so many. And I know that, on behalf of many across the association, they just want to say thank you for your time, for your accessibility, but particularly for that sense of friendship, someone who's journeyed alongside them, supported them, given some advice, wisdom, occasionally been robust with them, but have done so in such a loving way. So, we haven't had the opportunity to express that to you, publicly. Particularly, maybe there will be a time in the future when we might be able to do that. But I'm sure many would want to say that kind of thing to you. So big thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Joth. And but I want to give a thank you back and just say thank you to everyone who's just opened their lives really and given a great invitation to myself and to Sue. To just come and walk alongside them. It's been a huge privilege and a joy. And
we do want to, just say to Sue a big thank you, because we do recognise that, when there is someone significant that God uses, there's normally someone more significant behind them. Caring for them, looking after them,
absolutely,
supporting them, and actually often being, their voice of wisdom in the madness sometimes. I recognise that in my own wife, my Sue. But we do recognise that in your Sue too, and want to just say, thank you to her for her patience with you. For her kindness, but her support and her love, and the way she's and I know she's been your companion as well, attending different things alongside you.
No, thank you, Joth, and I'll pass that on to Sue.
Thank you. Any one last kind of story or anecdote that you're going to take with you to the grave from the days of SCBA?
Well, when I first started, and this is so typical of me, really, I needed to attend a level 2 and level 3 safeguarding training. And as you know, I'd been given the remit of looking after safeguarding. I thought, well, I better know something about it then. So I signed up, and I thought this is really, really handy, because the training was going to be just called Dorchester near Abingdon. And I thought, fantastic, because some of the training can be a bit whatever. For me, only a week before, was it a week before? It might even have been the day before. I think it was the day before, to find out it wasn't that Dorchester.
You got the wrong Dorchester, didn't you?
It's the wrong Dorchester. And I think I give that because I knew nothing. It was so funny because I didn't know where any of the churches were. I didn't know any of the pastors. I didn't even know where some of the towns were. And so when I was asked when I was asked to try and find a manse for us to live in here, I honestly, because we didn't know Oxfordshire at all, we came up. Everything was completely new to us, and so I felt lost for quite a few months actually. Confusion reigned quite a lot.
It does. Dave, it's been a joy to have you on the team. It's been a joy to get to know you. It's been a joy to listen to God through you. and as you've shared, you know, what God has laid on your heart in different ways. I know you've taken to, you know, video reflections and Zoom like a fish to the desert. But actually it has given...
It's not me at all.
But it has given opportunity for a lot of people to hear some of what God is doing in your life and what God is saying to you, but also what God is saying to others through you. So you're gonna leave a big hole, and one we don't really want to replace. You know, there's going to be a precious hole in SCBA, which will always be Dave Llewellyn, and we will protect that gap. It may feel a little bit like 3.5 years doesn't sound that long, but I think it has been incredibly significant for this association, for you and Sue, for the ministers, the churches that you've served. I think it's been a really positive 3.5 years, and we do thank God for that. And we do pray for you, Dave, as you have a break. We pray that you survive the mountains of Wales.
And I can see me ordering another electric kit for the bike somehow.
I wouldn't be surprised, particularly when Sue's further ahead of you most days.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And we do pray for the next season, of course, at Penarth, and that goes really well, and that's a blessing both to you and to them.
Inspire, connect,
Resource. Growing healthy churches.
is in relationship for God's mission.
Thanks, Dave, for sharing with us.
Joth, yeah, I lost you then for probably the last 20 seconds. So the screen froze. So
Yeah. I just wait for you to come back. That's been typical of you for over those years, and every now and then you're just frozen.
Tad harsh.